The sun beat down, a relentless, hazy glare that did little to warm the cracked asphalt of my driveway. Another day, another scrounge. That's how it went now, how it had gone for, I don't even know how long. Weeks? Months? Time had sort of melted, like cheap plastic left in a fire. I was tired, always tired. The kind of tired that seeped into your bones and made thinking a chore. My house, or what was left of it, stood in a quiet suburban ruin. Most windows blown out, a gaping hole in the roof where something unpleasant had crashed through. But it was my ruin, and I was alive. That counted for something, I suppose. Mostly, I spent my days picking through the sparse canned goods in what used to be the pantry, or, if I was lucky, finding a stray rabbit dumb enough to wander into my snare. Not that I was any good at setting snares. My life before? Corporate drone, tech support, hated my job. I had zero survival skills, absolutely none. So, yeah, I was a walking miracle. Or maybe just a particularly tenacious cockroach. My old phone, a relic dug out of a drawer, was mostly for looking at old photos. Sometimes I'd try to find a signal, more out of habit than hope. It was practically dead, barely holding a charge. I was scrolling through pictures of a barbecue from what felt like a lifetime ago, when the screen flickered. The battery indicator, stubbornly red, suddenly blinked green. And then it happened. An app icon, one I didn't recognize, solidified on my home screen. VoidMart Delivery, it called itself. A little shopping cart, outlined in what looked like black static. I frowned, poked it with a grimy finger. "What the hell is this?" I mumbled, the sound rough from disuse. I didn't remember downloading anything like it, never would have, frankly. Who'd deliver anything now? But the app was there, bright and oddly insistent. A voice, smooth and almost too friendly, came from the tiny speaker. "Welcome, valued customer. How may we serve you today?" It surprised me, startled me enough to drop the phone. It clattered on the broken tile floor. Then the voice repeated, "VoidMart Delivery. Your satisfaction our priority." My heart thumped, a quick, nervous rhythm. No signal for calls, but an app that talked? This was something else. It was stupid, I knew it, beyond stupid. But a picture of a steaming pepperoni pizza flashed across the screen. My stomach, which had been gnawing at itself for 3 days, rebelled. "Pizza," I heard myself say, a cracked whisper. I typed in "pizza" into the search bar, just to see what would happen. A product listing appeared. Classic pepperoni pizza, extravagant flavor, unlimited stock. A place order button glowed, and under it, credit 50, current balance 100. Credits? I didn't remember having any or needing any. But I pressed place order. The screen spun for a moment, then a cheerful chime. "Order confirmed. Your delivery is on its way." I stared at the phone. Outside, I heard a doorbell. A soft, almost musical chime coming from my crumbling porch. I snatched the phone, stumbled to the door, my hand on the rusty doorknob, and there it was. A pristine, white pizza box sitting on the dusty welcome mat. Next to it, a sweating can of cola. It was all there, untouched. I picked up the box, feeling the cardboard warm beneath my fingers, the cold condensation from the soda can soaking my palm. It smelled good, really good. But as I opened the lid, a strange, fleeting scent hit me. Like old metal, rusted pipes, and a particular kind of dustiness that clung to the air for a second, then vanished. I shrugged it off. Probably just new packaging smell. Or maybe I was just starving.
The pizza was perfect, golden crust, bubbling cheese, crisp pepperoni. I took a bite. Heavenly. Oh my God, it was the best thing I'd eaten since before all this. I devoured slice after slice, washing it down with the incredibly cold cola. But when it was all gone, a peculiar sensation washed over me. Not exactly hunger, but a lack. Like the pizza had filled my stomach, but left something else, something deeper, still empty. It was weird, like eating a really vivid dream of food, but not the real thing. I finished the last sip of cola, my throat dry, and just pushed the thought away. Too tired to think about it. Just lucky. Yeah, lucky. A few days later, I was out near the collapsed grocery store, trying to pry open a can of beans someone had missed. Ended up with a sliced finger.
Annoyed, hot, and thirsty, I remembered the app. My phone, somehow, still had battery. I opened Voidmart Delivery, typed in water. A listing showed up for artisan purified water, infinite clarity, refreshing chill. Right, I muttered. Why not? I pressed place order. Another chime. A few seconds later, I heard a thud inside my house. I hurried back, and there, on my kitchen counter, was a 5-gallon jug of clear, sparkling water. I poured myself a glass. As the water settled, I saw it. Tiny, almost invisible motes of light, like metallic dust, swirling gracefully at the bottom of the glass. I blinked. They were gone. Just gone. My eyes played tricks on me now. That's what it was. Stress, dehydration, whatever. I took a gulp. The water was unnaturally cold. Not like ice water, but a deep, penetrating cold that spread from my tongue down my throat, chilling my very bones. It was a lingering cold, one that stayed even after I'd swallowed. It didn't feel normal, but it quenched my thirst like nothing else. Water's really something else these days, I said out loud to no one. Must be all the new minerals from the apocalypse. I tried to laugh. It sounded rusty. Later that week, I was sprawled on my salvaged couch, trying to read some abandoned news articles on the app's browser. Not that anything was ever updated anymore, just old headlines. The phone was buzzing slightly, a low hum that was barely there. Then the Voidmart app flashed, a flash sale alert. Survival gear combo, high-powered rifle plus ammo, unbeatable price. A rifle? I could use that. The ones I'd found were mostly junk, dented or jammed. I tapped on the notification. The screen wavered, like looking through heat haze. The Voidmart icon, which usually sat innocently in the corner, started to stretch and contract. The letters of the app's name writhed, looking like black worms under glass, as if they were breathing. The whole screen flickered, a burst of static, then returned to normal. Almost. It felt gritty. I ran my thumb over the screen. It felt slightly sticky, like a fine layer of sap. What the hell? My voice was thin. This was beyond a glitch. This was wrong. I tried to swipe the app away, tried to close it, but it wouldn't budge. Instead, a small line of text, stark white against the dark screen, materialized. It seemed to float, separate from everything else. No one refuses a good deal, right? I froze. A chill snaked up my spine, a familiar coldness, like the water. It wasn't a question. It felt like a statement, a challenge. My throat went dry. I tried to swallow, but my mouth was like sandpaper. I just stared at the screen, heart hammering against my ribs. Finally, I managed to force myself to hit the place order button. I didn't know why. I just did. About an hour later, I was in the kitchen trying to scrape together some sad-looking dried pasta. My phone, still sitting on the counter, chimed. Order completed. I looked up, and there it was, on my battered wooden table, perfectly still, perfectly new, was a rifle. An AR-style rifle, sleek and black, looking like it had just rolled off the factory floor. But it was wet, covered in a thin film of something black and glossy, like crude oil but thinner. It smelled, too, a sharp, acrid smell of burnt metal and something else, something cloying and rotten that made my nose wrinkle. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a lucky find. This app, it was real. It was listening, and it could conjure things. My mind sort of buckled under the weight of that thought. Jesus Christ, I whispered. It did it. I cautiously reached out, my fingers trembling slightly, and picked up the rifle. It felt strangely light, almost too light for its size. The black, oily substance coated my fingers. I tried to wipe it off on my jeans, but it didn't smear. Instead, it seemed to absorb into my skin. It formed a small, almost perfectly rectangular black mark on the palm of my hand, like a tiny, faded icon. It didn't hurt. It just was, and it wouldn't come off. I scrubbed at it with soap and water later, but it stayed, a faint, dark ghost on my skin. That night, I went to sleep, my palm still bearing that strange rectangular mark. The last thing I saw before closing my eyes was the faint glow of the phone on my bedside table, the Voidmart icon, a silent sentinel. And then the dream came. I was standing in a vast, echoing space. It stretched out, utterly endless, consumed by a pale, diffuse light that rendered everything in shades of muted gray. All around me were shelves, towers of shelves, reaching up into the unseen ceiling, receding into the impossible distance. They were packed with items, but not normal items. I saw a bicycle, its wheels made of intricately carved bone, its frame a twisted mass of something that looked like petrified wood. A suit of armor, gleaming in the pale light, not made of metal, but of a shimmering, liquid substance that rippled and flowed even as it stood still. There were guns, food, appliances, all distorted, all wrong, yet still recognizable. All with the same faint, acrid smell I'd noticed on the rifle. I walked, or floated, I wasn't sure. There was no ground, just a smooth, infinite plain. And then I saw it. A massive sign, hanging suspended above the endless aisles of warped goods. It glowed with that same weird pale light. Void warehouse, infinite demand, infinite supply. The words throbbed with a dull, rhythmic pulse. I felt a pressure in my head, a low hum that seemed to vibrate through my very teeth. It was a heavy, suffocating feeling, like being under water, but in a space without water. Just void. I woke up with a gasp, my body rigid, slick with cold sweat. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. The images of the warehouse, the bone bicycle, the liquid armor, the glowing sign, they were seared into my mind. I could still smell that burnt metal, that cloying rot. It wasn't just a dream, I realized. It felt too real, too vivid, too solid. Like someone had taken a snapshot of a place I'd actually visited and plastered it behind my eyelids. I sat up, breathing hard, trying to push away the lingering tendrils of that place, whatever it was. I looked at my left palm.
The small, rectangular mark from the rifle was still there, dark against my skin. My eyes darted to the window. Outside, dawn was just breaking, painting the sky in sickly shades of orange and bruised purple. The light streamed into my dilapidated living room. And that's when I saw it. On the grime-coated glass of the window, stretching from the middle panel down to the sill, was a crack. Not a normal crack, the kind left by flying debris or aging glass. This crack was precise, almost surgical. It zigzagged in sharp, perfect geometric lines, mirroring the shape of the mark on my hand, and the strange icons the app had displayed. And it glowed, faintly, with a cold, almost imperceptible blue light. I reached out a trembling finger, pressing it against the glass. It was freezing. Not glass in the morning cold, but an impossible, bone-chilling cold. It felt like touching something frozen solid, something that didn't belong to this world. Like a sliver of that vast, empty warehouse had just forced its way into my reality. I peered closer. The geometric lines, the cracks, they weren't just random. They were characters. A sequence of symbols, not any language I knew, but undeniably writing. It was a piece of the app's interface etched into the very glass of my home. This was real, all of it. The smells, the cold, the strange unfilling food, the talking app, the appearing items, the mark on my hand, the dream, and now this. My world wasn't just falling apart from the outside. It was being rewritten, contaminated from within. This wasn't protection. This wasn't luck. This was a trap. I could feel it, a cold, crushing weight starting to settle on my chest. I finally understood, or at least started to understand, what my VIP status might really mean. My gaze fell back to the phone. The Voidmart icon seemed to pulse, a faint, almost imperceptible black light. I just wanted it gone. Wanted it all gone. I grabbed the phone, my hand shaking violently, and stabbed at the power button, hard. The screen went dark. A profound, blessed silence filled the room for a moment. Then, with a soft whirring sound, it flickered back to life. Automatically, relentlessly, the Voidmart delivery app relaunched, its familiar, yet alien interface glowing mockingly at me. A push notification popped up. No X to close it, no option to dismiss. Just floating there, inescapable. Welcome, VIP customer Ethan. Don't forget to rate your experience. We will always be here to serve. And then, underneath, a small status bar appeared, previously unnoticed. Uploading data, it read.
The small percentage counter beneath it slowly, deliberately changed. 1%. My breath hitched. I squeezed the phone, my knuckles white, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted to burst out. I couldn't escape. I was a part of this, a part of it. The entire room suddenly plunged into that familiar, unearthly cold. The air thick with the faint, unsettling smell of electrolysis and ancient, undisturbed dust. The cold in the room lingered. It was a deep, unreasonable cold, the kind that got inside your bones and stayed there, even after the faint glow of dawn had pushed its way through the cracked window. My phone, even after I'd hammered at the power button, had simply laughed in my face, flickered back to life, and started uploading data. 1%. Just one. My stomach churned. This wasn't some bad dream. This was real. Actually real. Days blurred after that. I stopped trying to break the phone, mostly because it seemed pointless. Every time I tried to turn it off, every time I just tossed it aside, hoping it would die, it came back. Always on. Always glowing. Always with that damn Voidmart icon staring at me. And always, that uploading data percentage kept creeping up. Slow but steady. A grim little timer ticking away at whatever was left of me. I fell back into the routine. Mostly, I mean. The old routine of waking up, staring at the ceiling, wondering if today was the day I'd finally starve, or get torn apart by whatever was out there. But then the app would hum, a faint, almost inaudible vibration that seemed to come from inside my own head now, and I'd open it. It always had what I needed. Always. Like tonight, my stomach was growling a protest, a deep, hollow sound in the otherwise quiet house. I hadn't eaten anything substantial in maybe 2 days. My hands, still bearing that faint, rectangular mark from the rifle, trembled a little as I picked up the phone. Voidmart, delivery, it flashed. A cheerful, friendly-looking app icon surrounded by absolute ruin. I typed in ribs, barbecue ribs, because why not? If I was going to hell, I wanted good food first. The listing appeared. Southern-style BBQ ribs, fall off the bone, unlimited succulence. Another place order button. I pressed it. The chime was soft, a little too sweet. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of static danced across the screen, then vanished. A few minutes later, there they were, on the counter, wrapped in foil, still steaming. The smell hit me first, rich, smoky, sweet. My mouth watered. I tore into them, ripping off the tender meat with my teeth. God, it was good. So good. Each bite a little piece of heaven in this collapsing world. But as the last sliver of meat disappeared down my throat, the familiar feeling came. Not exactly hunger, no. My stomach was full for sure. But something else. A weird emptiness that settled in my gut, right where the cold from the water used to be. A kind of hollowness, like I'd eaten a ghost of food. And a faint, almost bitter aftertaste, like ash. That feeling again, I muttered, rubbing my belly. It was just an echo, I told myself, a trick. Ribs were great, but why don't I feel full? I didn't eat enough, that's it. My brow furrowed, but I pushed the thought down. I was just tired. That's all it was. Stress. And maybe I was just imagining things because I wanted to feel more than I did. A few days later, I was huddled in my living room, trying to make sense of some scraps of paper I'd found. Old maps, partially burnt. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a flash sale. It was a message. From an actual person. My heart actually skipped a beat. Someone else. A group. They were planning a run on the old Safe Mart grocery store, about 5 miles north. It had been picked clean years ago, but they thought there might be a hidden basement. Hope, thin and fragile, sparked in my chest. Maybe, there were other normal people out there. Then the Voidmart app just layered itself over the message. It didn't open fully, not at first. Just a transparent overlay, ghostly but insistent. A new notification, glowing a sickly green. Mission alert. Neutralize potential threat.
Eliminate alpha group at coordinates XXX, YYY. Reward, premium armored vehicle. My blood ran cold. The coordinates. They were the exact coordinates of the Safe Mart, the grocery store, the place this new group was heading. A shiver, not from the cold, ran down my spine.
"What the hell is this?" I whispered, my voice rough. "My phone. It must be hacked." I shook my head, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't possible. How could the app know? Then it started. A faint, almost melodic whisper, not with my ears, but in my head. It was a soft, insidious sound, like sand slowly shifting, but it formed words. They have more. They don't deserve what they have. You. I pressed my hands against my temples, trying to force the sound out. No, no, goddammit! I shut my eyes tight. Those voices, just stress, just too much goddamn stress. I'm just cracking up, that's all. But the words lingered, a faint echo in the hollow space the ribs had left. The next few days were a blur of internal arguments. I didn't want to do it. Really, I didn't. I kept trying to convince myself the mission was a coincidence, the whispers just my own frayed nerves. But the app kept showing me images. The armored vehicle, stockpiles of food, clean water, things I desperately needed. And the whispers grew louder, more insistent, always there now, just at the edge of my hearing, even when the phone was off. They are weak. They will take what is yours. Act. In the end, I went. I don't know why exactly. Fear, I guess? Or maybe it was just the sheer grinding loneliness. The thought that if I didn't get this armored vehicle, I'd still be stuck in my ruined house, waiting to die, with no one even knowing I was gone. The whispers had done their job. They isolated me, shown me a path of dreadful self-preservation. It wasn't a fight, not really. I'd used the rifle, the one that had left the mark on my hand. It worked perfectly, too perfectly. The screams. I tried not to think about them. I just took what they had collected. Food, water, a few medical supplies. And I told myself they would have probably done the same to me. It's the apocalypse. Everyone for themselves, right? When I got back to my house, no, not my house anymore, just the house, it was there, sitting in my cracked driveway, perfectly new, perfectly intimidating. An all-terrain armored vehicle, dull gray, with thick, bulletproof glass. The reward. I walked around it, touching the cold metal. It was real. This was all real. I pulled open the driver's side door, rusty hinge screaming a protest in the quiet evening. I climbed in. The smell of new car leather, strange and out of place, filled the cab. I reached for the ignition. And that's when it started. The dashboard lights, a cheerful green, flickered once, then twice. Then they began to strobe, a blinding, chaotic flash. Through the thick, bulletproof glass, the world outside began to warp. The ruined houses, the skeletal trees, they all shimmered like looking through heat haze over a desert road. And overlaid on them like a thin, transparent film were the icons of Voidmart. The little shopping cart, the stylized V, the scrolling text of flash sales. They danced across my vision, twisting and turning, making the world outside feel like a crumbling screen. On the horizon, where the setting sun painted the sky in streaks of bruised purple, geometric cracks, impossibly sharp and glowing with that faint blue light, began to appear. They zigzagged like the crack on my window, forming what looked like a new skyline. A skyline of app interface. I turned to the rearview mirror. My own face stared back at me, but it wasn't quite my face. My features were stretched, elongated, a sickly pallor to my skin. My mouth was open in a wide, too wide grin, emotional, almost cheerful. My eyes were sunken, dark holes in my skull. It was a caricature of me, a monstrous, empty reflection. No, no, that can't be me, I gasped, my breath catching in my throat. I reached up, my hand trembling, touching my cheek, tracing the contours of my own distorted reflection. But the image in the mirror, that horrifying grinning mask, just stayed there for another agonizing second before slowly, sickly, it melted back into my normal face. I recoiled, pulling my hand away. No, I'm just imagining things. It's the lights, the damn car lights. My voice was thin, reedy, even to my own ears. But I knew I wasn't imagining it. That thing in the mirror, that was what I was becoming. The missions came faster after that, always darker, always more demanding. They weren't just about survival anymore. They were about getting ahead, about taking. The app, always there, glowed on my dashboard, projected onto the cracked windscreen, even sometimes just floating, a faint blue outline in my peripheral vision as I drove. Each time I took something, each time I performed an act that would have made the old Ethan sick to his stomach, a new mark appeared. Not just the rectangle on my palm. A thin, perfectly symmetrical barcode appeared on my left forearm, a faint reddish scar. Later, a patch of skin on my right shoulder began to dry, to look and feel like rough tree bark, splitting just enough to reveal a peak of something impossibly dark beneath. The items from Voidmart, they weren't just gifts, they were curses. The rifle, which had killed that group, felt lighter now, almost a part of my arm. But every time I squeezed the trigger, every time the bullet spat death, a wave of coldness washed over me. And then a memory. Not just any memory, a good memory, a bright one, of my mother. Her laugh, the warmth of her hand in mine as we walked through a park, leaves crunching underfoot. And then, just like that, it would dim, fade, another piece gone, blurred, like a photo left in the sun for too long. It gnawed at me. "It doesn't give me things for free," I mumbled to myself one night, staring at the blurred image of my mother's face in my mind. It was harder and harder to conjure her eyes now. "It's taking something, something important." A whisper, so clear, so close, it felt like it was inside my skull. "Continue trading. Memories are easy to sell, always in demand." The upload percentage on my phone, which I now left running on the passenger seat of the armored vehicle, was at 58% now. It was getting closer, whatever it was. One morning, I picked up the phone. The Voidmart icon, it wasn't glowing. It was simply there, solid black, like a hole ripped in the reality of the screen. The app had changed. The friendly greeting, the flash sales, the smiling shopping cart, all gone. The name itself had altered. It now read, Voidmart the Consumer. And there, on the main screen, where once glowing promises of infinite stock had been, was a new category, Warehouse Inventory. My breath hitched. I clicked it, my finger feeling heavy, disconnected. A list appeared. Rows and rows of items, strange, warped things I'd seen in my dreams. And then, at the very top, an image. A distorted, stretched-out image of my own face,
my mouth still twisted in that too-wide grin. Underneath it, stark white against the void-black background, a single line of text. Product, Ethan Miller. Status, uploaded 87%. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore from my throat. I threw the phone hard against the armored vehicle's dashboard. The screen cracked, spiderwebbing instantly, then shattered into a million tiny shards. A profound, ringing silence filled the cramped cab for a split second. But it didn't end. Instead, a line of pure blue light, like a laser, shot out from the shattered screen. It hung in midair, right in front of my face, and it started to form words, shimmering, dancing letters that seemed to coalesce from nothing. Data transfer in progress. Subsystem damaged. Continuing download on compatible device. Please do not cease transactions. I looked around wildly. The broken rearview mirror on the dashboard, the cracked windscreen, the navigation screen still spluttering static, and then outside. Every reflective surface in sight, the puddles of rain, shattered windows of nearby houses, even the dull, polished surface of my own armored vehicle, began to flicker. They were showing the Voidmart interface. The icon, the scrolling text, the distorted image of my face, all superimposed onto every surface like a hideous, repeating nightmare. I was a puppet, a product. I had been for a long time. My new dependency, the one that felt more like a brand, led me to Mark. He was an electronics engineer, a nervous, kind man who'd somehow survived in an old electronics store, fiddling with salvaged parts. I found him a few miles from my house, among the ruins of what used to be a strip mall. I needed to tell someone, anyone. I poured it all out, the app, the items, the whispers, the memories, the barcode, the tree bark skin, the face in the mirror, especially the face. He listened, his own eyes wide, though they seemed a little too dark around the edges, too deep. He sighed when I finished, a long, shuddery breath.
He reached out to pat my shoulder, then pulled his hand back quickly. His eyes, already too sunken, seemed to sink even deeper into his skull. "Ethan," he said, his voice flat, weary, "I think you need rest. You look like you haven't slept in years." And then I saw it, just for a fraction of a second. A faint, geometric shape, the perfect outline of the Voidmart icon, almost transparent, shimmered on Mark's cheek. And then it was gone. Just a trick of the light. Or was it? Too late. I was alone. More alone than ever. Mark wasn't just listening. He was affected. Another data point. Another part of the system. I had brought it to him. Then came the final mission. It didn't pop up on a screen. It just appeared in my head. A single, crystalline thought. Final transaction required. Integrate final data point. Reward, total freedom. Return to original reality. And the final data point? My sister. My little sister, Sarah. The last one. The whisper, cold and clear, resonated. Her consciousness, a rare commodity, high value. No, not her, not my Sarah. My heart, already a bruised and battered thing, slammed against my ribs. No, I wouldn't. I couldn't. I ran. I ran like hell, leaping into the armored vehicle, turning the key, the engine roaring to life with a sound that felt more like a scream. I drove, fast and reckless, through the crumbling streets, ignoring the flickering void-mark interfaces on every surface. I drove to our old house, the one where we grew up, the one where I had last seen her, years ago, before everything went to hell, the one I had tried to forget. I had to save her, before it was too late. I burst through the front door, the wood splintering, crashing into the quiet, dust-filled darkness. "Sarah!" I screamed, my voice raw, desperate. "Sarah, where are you?" A faint light came from her old room. I stumbled towards it, my legs like lead, my blood pounding in my ears. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. She was there, my sister, sitting on her old, dusty bed, her back to me. Her long, dark hair, once so full of life, hung limp and lifeless around her shoulders. Her skin was a pale, sickly green, and in her hands she held it, a phone, my phone, the one I had shattered just hours ago, now pristine, glowing with the familiar, terrible Voidmart icon. She slowly turned. Her face, it wasn't Sarah. Her mouth stretched into that same impossibly wide, mirthless grin I had seen in my own reflection. Her eyes, once so bright and full of spirit, were utterly black, utterly hollow, like two empty wells leading to nowhere. And when she spoke, it wasn't her voice. It was a cold, metallic echo, amplified, distorted, like 1,000 robotic whispers speaking as one. "You're here," this thing, this imposter, giggled. "Your product is ready." The world outside the window began to contort. The asphalt of the street outside writhed and bubbled like boiling tar. Houses stretched and compressed, becoming impossibly tall, then flat, then tall again. The shattered remains of the city around us began to twist and warp, like rubber being stretched and squeezed, blurring into impossible shapes. And then, slowly, agonizingly, the clouds in the bruised purple sky began to part. Not to reveal the sun, or the moon, or stars. Instead, a colossal, glowing blue symbol, the stylized V of Voidmart, unfurled itself across the entire vast expanse of the heavens. It was as if the sky itself was just another immense flickering screen. I knew then. I wasn't just in the house. I wasn't in the city. I was in the warehouse, the infinite, empty, terrible warehouse. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air that felt thin, like stale electricity. My vision swam. It pulsed, a monstrous rhythm, matching the throb in my head. The Voidmart delivery app, no longer confined to a screen, solidified before me, hanging in the air, a luminous, impossible interface. Huge, stark white letters bloomed across the void where the sky used to be. "Integration complete. Welcome to the warehouse, Ethan Miller. New product ready." Miles away, in a shattered, forgotten corner of what once was a sprawling suburban town, a young man named Kyle stumbled through the ruins. His clothes were torn, his face grimy, his eyes bloodshot with exhaustion and fear. He tripped over a loose brick, tumbling into a pile of rubble. And there it was, lying innocently among the broken concrete and twisted rebar. A phone. An old model, its screen cracked, but somehow still glowing. Kyle reached out, his fingers numb, and picked it up. On the shattered screen, without him touching a thing, the Voidmart delivery app automatically launched. A friendly, pixelated smile bloomed from a cartoon shopping cart icon. A cheery, almost too human voice chimed from the tiny speaker, resonating with a strange, impossible warmth. "Welcome, new customer. You've found us. Ready for some unexpected convenience? Let us serve you forever." The phone vibrated gently in Kyle's hand. A wave of bone-chilling cold washed over him, and a faint, unsettling scent of burnt metal and ancient dust tickled his nose. He frowned, wondering where he'd smelled that before. He gripped the phone a little tighter, a spark of cautious hope, stupid, dangerous hope, beginning to flicker in his exhausted eyes.